What's up guys, my name is Marc Steiner, and today we're going to be talking about the Sony A7S III. We now have a confirmed announcement date that is July 28th at 10 a.m. Eastern, so I'm very excited for that. I'm in Hong Kong, so that's 10 p.m. for me, but still excited nonetheless. We'll be staying up to do a video, watch the full thing, and pre-order it, because I'm so excited. Let's get into some of these specs. Now, as always, when it comes to rumors, you should take everything with a grain of salt. Nothing is confirmed until it is confirmed, and all of these are rumors, but the likelihood is that these are going to be more or less correct, and this will give us a good idea of what to expect when the Sony A7S III is officially announced on July 28th. So the first rumor we're expecting to be true is the 12 megapixel sensor. Now, for a lot of people out there, that might sound like a huge downgrade compared to what else is on the market when you're looking at the A7 III or the A7R III. And even the previous generation A7S II had that same 12 megapixel sensor. So what's up with that? What that means is that this is a brand new sensor. That resolution doesn't really matter because all we need is 4K. This is not going to be doing 6K. This is not going to be doing 8K. That 12 megapixel sensor means it's going to have big pixels and amazing low light performance with very little noise and amazing dynamic range, which is the next thing we're going to be talking about. They're reporting 15 stops of dynamic range on this sensor. This I always take with a grain of salt because this is always a marketing thing. You hear this from practically any camera that is released on the market. In video, I find it more impressive when they say 15 stops compared to photo. But I still won't trust anything when it says 15 stops because you have something like a 12-year-old ARRI with 12 stops of dynamic range that looks better than anything on the market today in this price range. So take it with a grain of salt. That 15 stops could be absolutely incredible, or it could be, as expected from a digital camera of this size and price class. However, what did get me very interested is that one of the early testers who Sony sent out a pre-production model to said that the dynamic range is so good that they're comparing it to an Arri Alexa Mini. And I found that very, very interesting because if we're getting cinema camera dynamic range levels out of this thing, that's insane. Another rumor is saying that we're going to be getting 600 megabits per second recording, which is awesome. On all the current Sony cameras, you're limited to that 100 megabits per second in 4K, in 120. It doesn't matter. You're always limited to that 100 bits per second. And I always felt like that was a bit of a bummer because you're really limiting the amount of data these files are allowed to have when you're using post-production stuff. So there's just less information to work around with. So going from 100 megabits per second to 600 megabits per second is a welcome change. So I'm very excited if that is actually true. We're also apparently getting a base ISO of 160 in S-Log3. Now that is very impressive because on the previous camera, I believe it was 1600. So that is a huge change, which means you can have lower ISO, lower noise, better dynamic range. I'm excited for that. In an S-Log format, 160, base 160 is awesome for S-Log3. Very excited to see that. Speaking of S-Log3, this was previously an unusable picture profile on practically any Sony camera because the log profile just couldn't keep up with the codec. It was absolute garbage. No one recommended that you use it. Even S-Log2, practically no one really touched because it just wasn't meant for these kind of cameras. The codec couldn't handle that kind of stuff. Sure, you could grade it. It was usable, but with that high base ISO, for me, it just wasn't worth it. I usually use HLG, and that is what I've been loving on these cameras. These cameras really handle it well, especially with a lower base ISO, and there is still a lot of dynamic range there with good color. But what does interest me is that we're actually going to be getting 10-bit 422 on this camera, and I'm very, very excited about that. So that means you're getting a higher quality codec, more room to play around with in post, and you just have more information in these files. So that's a welcome change, but something that we have been wanting for a while now, and something honestly that's just to be standard in 2020. Now on to some resolution and frame rates. Like I said, this is not going to be shooting 6K, this is not going to be shooting 8K. What it is going to be shooting is very high quality 4K. And honestly, that's what most people want. You look at the Canon EOS R5 and you get that 8K 12-bit RAW, no one's gonna be touching that. So 4K is where it's at, and I'd much rather have a high quality 4K than something else. And when that comes to that 4K, you're getting 4K unlimited record time in all modes. So that already beats the R5, so I'm very excited for that. But you're getting 4K 120, and that is insane. I'm very excited for that. Competes with the Canon EOS R5, but with no overheating. that's a good thing. That's a very, very good thing. So if we get 4K 120 on this camera, that's going to be a game changer in my opinion. You're also going to be getting 1080 at 240, which is a welcome change. When you upscale it to 4K, especially on YouTube compression, it'll look really good. And that's something that was omitted from the Canon cameras as well. So 240, you're getting even better slow motion. 1080, still usable in 2020, but 4K is where it's at, and that's where this camera is really going to shine. Now, this is where the wording of some rumors get a little bit weird for me because I can't confirm anything, obviously, but they're saying that there's going to be RAW recording. I have a feeling that's going to be over HDMI, and honestly, I think that's the best way to do RAW internally because we only have dual SD card slots, which are UHS 2, which is a good thing, but you don't have that CF Express, so I don't think there's a way to record RAW internally, but most people don't want to be recording RAW internally, and I have a feeling we're going to be seeing something like a Ninja 5 or maybe like a new Ninja or another external recorder be coming out that does support the A7S III at launch with RAW recording. And that means that that's a nice, $500 to $700 upgrade to unlock that RAW capability if you so wish. And I think that's the best way to do RAW at this kind of price point. I think the internal RAW of the Canon was not necessarily the way to go. But if you so wish to upgrade to unlock the potential of RAW, getting an external recorder would be really, really handy. And I think that is the best way to do it on these kind of cameras. With that, you're going to be doing RAW 4K at 120 if you so wish. And this is another rumor that I find very sketchy, but possible, but unlikely. I just don't see how it's going to do it. But they're saying 16-bit RAW. And that's something that you don't really see on anything except the highest end cinema cameras or medium format stills cameras. So 16-bit RAW would be absolutely insane, even over HDMI. I don't know if I believe that rumor. It just seems too good to be true. Plus, the file size, I don't know. But having that much information in a file would be absolutely insane. I would love to see what Sony actually announces. So previously, we talked about that no record limit, and this is something that Sony has been implementing on all of their new cameras with no record limit. The big question here was about the overheating. And I think Sony has solved that because the A7S III is rumored to have a passive cooling system. So this is very important to keep that camera cool, and the fact that it's only recording 4K means that it doesn't have to bust out crazy stuff with 6K or 8K. With that passive cooling system, I do foresee no overheating happening in ideal conditions. Where I live in Arizona, when it gets up to 50 degrees Celsius or 120 degrees Fahrenheit, that's a different story. But for most people, I don't foresee overheating happening. I think this is going to be really, really helpful, and if this is true, blows the competition out of the water once again, because the Canon cameras are rumored to have massive overheating problems, but until I see people have it in their hand and test it out, I can't confirm that. But the fact that Canon is already saying all of its overheating isn't a good sign, so the fact that Sony is going to be coming out with a camera that they're claiming doesn't overheat at all, very impressive. So unlimited 4K recording, unlimited 4K 120 recording. We just should do away with record limits in 2020. There's no need for that. So the fact that there's no physical record limit and there's no overheating record limit, very nice to see. One of the first rumors to leak about the Sony A7S III was the EVF, and this thing is going to have a 9.44 million dot EVF, the best EVF on the market, and that seems pretty impressive to me. But again, someone made a good point. How many people are going to be looking through the tiny EVF while they're recording video? Not most people. So it's great that they're including that, but I also don't see it coming in handy that much. So I was so excited about that feature, and then I was like, how often am I looking through the viewfinder when I'm recording video? Almost never. But what is really, really exciting is that the rumor is that we're finally getting a Flippy screen on the A7S III, and this is honestly the best thing that could have happened to this camera. They're going to be implementing the Flippy touchscreen from the ZV-1, and I'm very excited about that. That just makes life so much easier. I could be recording myself right now and being able to see myself. It's just having that flip screen, this is what we've been wanting. This is honestly one of the best features to have on this brand new camera, and I cannot wait to see this Flippy screen in action, how good it is, if the touchscreen is actually usable. Even if it isn't, that Flippy screen is still a great feature, but I would love to see a usable touchscreen that is flippable, and I'm very excited for that because I love it. I love it. And I think a lot of other people are going to like it as well. That was probably going to be the biggest deal on this camera. Just add a Flippy screen. That's all you need to do. This camera is going to be announced on July 28th at 10 a.m. Eastern. So if you're in the US, plan your day around that. Pre-order it that day. Rumors are suggesting that it's going to be shipping mid-August. I'd be surprised if they shipped it that quickly. I'm expecting more later August, but you never know. So be sure to tune into that for the full announcement where everything is no longer a rumor and it's 100% confirmed by Sony themselves. That's going to be very fun to watch, and I cannot wait for this camera to come to the market, get my hands on it, test it out, and make a bunch of content for you guys to see and just use this as my dedicated video camera. I'm very excited about this camera. So let me know in the comment section down below, what do you think is true? What do you think is false? Are these rumors tantalizing enough? Is the hype train bigger than the R5? How's the hype train doing for you? I'm just so excited about this camera. I know a lot of Sony fanboys are as well. I know a lot of people in the industry are excited about this camera. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. My name is Marc Steiner, and I'll see you next time.